many teenagers hate being sent to boarding school. Especially religious boarding schools that have many rules and regulations to follow. In 1970, that's exactly what 14-year-old Australian Keith Sapsford was going through. Keith made the bold decision to run away from home, but his destination was unexpected. He secretly boarded a plane to another country, fleeing Australia, and this decision had a profound impact on his life. Before Keith decides to escape by plane, his father had told him the story of a Spanish boy who sneaked into the undercarriage of a plane and escaped with it. But he died later due to the change in altitude. The reason why Keith's father told him this story was because he wanted to threaten his son, but the result was the opposite. Keith, a curious and adventurous child, was born in 1956. His high spirits often led him to run away from home, prompting his parents to send him to a Catholic boarding school. The institution specialized in the care of unruly children, hoping to dissuade Keith from his frequent escapades. But it was only 2 weeks after Keith went to that school. He was able to escape from the school, and he headed straight for the airport. At the time, airport regulations weren't as strict as they are today, and Keith was able to sneak into the airport before seeing a plane destined for Japan and deciding to smuggle it on board. Keith believes that he is not as dangerously affected by air pressure as the Spanish boy his father had told him about, since he would get into the wheel and likely not be harmed by air pressure. What Keith didn't expect was that the landing gear reopened shortly after takeoff, causing Keith to fall from a height of 200 feet, approximately 60 meters. It was a great tragedy for the Sapsford family. From examining data from aviation-related agencies in the United States, it was found that during the year 1947 to 2012, of the 96 people who smuggled into the plane's landing gear to escape, 85 of them escaped, but only 23 survived. That's 73 deaths. At the time of the incident, on the ground, amateur photographer John Gilpin was also at the airport and was snapping photos of the airport in the hopes of getting a picture or two. It came out beautiful, but what John didn't expect was that his image would be the moment Keith fell. At the time, Keith was in the plane's landing gear for several hours before takeoff, and later when examining the plane, Keith's fingerprints, footprints, and bits of fabric from his shirt were found as evidence that he had actually sneaked onto the plane. And the sad thing is that even if Keith didn't fall to his death, he wouldn't have survived. He probably died from the cold and suffocated, as the area where he was hiding was extremely cold and lacking oxygen. Also, the wheel space that Keith dodged was risky as the space was so narrow he must have been uncomfortable and unbearable. After John Gilpin took pictures at the airport, nearly a week later, John noticed an unusual picture of himself the moment Keith fell to his death. Keith's hands were spread out as if trying to grab something to hold him from falling. The image that John Gilpin took was to this day, it is still an image that has caused many people to feel goosebumps and depression at the same time and is still engraved in history today.